Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time. Home from Mobile after a fun-filled, packed, and busy week. Down at the Senior Bowl, what better time to do a mock draft than now? Coming up, another episode of the Draft Dodgers after this. And we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your friend Dom C, host of the Draft Dodgers here on Project Prospect with Dom C. Ready to have a fun night, ready to have a fun show here for you. Gonna do a mock draft, gonna talk about some of the highs and lows, some of the good and the bad that happened this past week down in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. Another great week in the books. Fabulous game. If you haven't caught it today, go watch the replay. I mean, you couldn't have written a better ending to the story of this week. So, we're going to get to talk to it. And as usual, I'm not alone. Happy for the first time to bring on the show as a guest. You've seen him on Twitter at Parker Blake 60. He does draft content for TWSN as well. So if you haven't followed him or if you're not, make sure you do. Let me introduce you to my friend, Parker Blake. Parker, welcome, brother.
Happy to be here, brother. Always happy to talk the draft.
Oh, yeah, man. And like I said, I know people could get tired. Some people could get tired, because, after the Senior Bowl and whatnot, you see all these recaps and who, the big winners, the big losers, this mock draft, that mock draft. So, to the nuts, to the crazies like us, man, I got to get into the flow as well. And I got to get a mock draft out here. And I'm happy to do it with you. First time here hosting or co-hosting with me on my channel. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I always talk about mock drafts, and as much as I love doing them, I feel like, it really doesn't matter who you throw in because they're all just fun and they're all wrong. So it's always good to look ahead, and it's a good way to, get prospects out there, get people familiar with, certain prospects, different prospects even, and always a blast, man.
We're getting on with this mock draft. And before I do so, let me get the house cleaning out of the way. If you haven't done so, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, do all those things, leave a comment, get some friendly discourse going on in the comment section. Tell me and tell Parker what you like, what you don't like, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Really helps the YouTube algorithm, find this video and get it out to more of the masses. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. And if you can't, watch the content anyway. Maybe you get something out of it. Maybe you don't. It's all good, dude. We're going to do it nonetheless. So, Parker, tell me about the week, man. Tell me about your week. So many people there. I think this year more so than ever. This is my fourth Senior Bowl. This year more than ever, I thought it was jam-packed on the media side. A lot more, a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new ones as well. I think the Senior Bowl means a lot more to just the NFL pieces and the print media and the guys who do content for different avenues like us. It's opening up. It's really expanding. There's a big contingency of fantasy guys out there now, which I think is pretty cool. So tell me about your week, man. How was it? I don't know if it was your first time. Tell me anything that good, bad, or indifferent about your week down in Mobile.
For sure. Yeah, no, this is my second Senior Bowl. And I agree with you 100%. I feel like there was so many people there that I didn't either recognize from last year or just in general. It felt so much busier this year. And I talked to a bunch of people who were saying that it was their first year. And it feels like it's growing and growing. And it's always great to just be with more like-minded individuals. And I do think it's interesting, talking to the different, fantasy or, dynasty guys. It's a lot of dynasty guys out there preparing for rookie drafts or putting the rookie draft content out there. And, I'm new to dynasty fantasy football, but I'm having a blast with it. So it's fun to talk with those guys. And then again, my favorite part about coming down to the Senior Bowl is I feel like I always find a new prospect, right? Whether it's an FCS guy or just a guy that I wasn't familiar with, I haven't gotten that far in my process yet. There's always a guy that flashes. They're like, oh, he's not on my board yet. I'm going to go and I go home and watch the film at night, watch the practice film, try and find some, game film from the season, and just get hip to some of these guys I'm just not familiar with. And it's always great to confirm some of your priors, right? When you come down, you see certain guys. I'm a big Shamar Stewart guy, and I thought he really did a lot of fun stuff for me to watch this week, and that was just fun for me to be like, yeah, my evaluation was right, and it held up in person down here at an All-Star game.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part. And not a lot of people who evaluate prospects and write content or do content draft related talk about it enough. And I'm a big believer. I learned a long time ago not to adjust my rankings or my grades based on 3 days of practices, which is usually pretty much consistent of just one-on-one drills. Use it to corroborate what I saw on film. And if it's different, then I make little marks to go back to that player in particular and review the film and see what was different or what I missed or so on and so forth. Because, to me, the film is king. This is just a tool to, emphasize the evaluation process for me. So I think that's a really important part that you brought up, and I'm glad you did. So, you talked about Shamar Stewart. He was one of the guys that I think that I'm going to go back and watch. I was maybe a little bit lower on him. And I think, if I'm being honest, part of it has to do because I went back and looked at the scouting report I wrote up on him. And I realized that probably about 3 or 4 games that I did watch, I was watching Shamar Turner instead of Shamar Stewart. So, it is what it is. I mean,
a lot of Shamars.
Too many Shamars on the same damn team. No, but yeah, I agree that he had a great week. Who was somebody that you were really looking forward to, maybe that you were higher on, that maybe didn't live up to the mark, or really, kind of looked a little bit out of sorts or overmatched for that matter?
I think the biggest one that stood out to me this week was, I'm trying to think coming back, and I think Deion Walker was interesting because I was never too high on him. I saw the kind of the limitations in his game, and I thought it was a weird, physical versus play style fit as far as how he is as a player. And then coming down here, he had a little rougher of a week, and it wasn't really. I think I just came down because I was trying to hold out hope. I'm a Kentucky fan, so I was hoping for Deion Walker, and so I don't think it was harder for me to drop him in my rankings than I kind of seeing him live and in person, just watching him. I was like, man, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it with him.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example. I have a buddy in the Jet world who's also does draft content, and he's been a big Deion Walker fan for years. I mean, he's been talking about him since last year. And you watch his film last year, and it's completely different this year. And he swears that he had to have been playing hurt or something like that because he checks off so many boxes in terms of, like he's a unit, man. Height, weight, speed, that whole nine just checks out. But like the play, like the juice ain't worth the squeeze. And when you're looking at the play and the player, so I think that's a great example of a guy like that. Myself, I am still a big fan of Wyatt Milam. And I love the fact I had a chance to sit down and talk to him for, a good 10, 15 minutes. And we talked about, his career at West Virginia and how he came in here by choice to play inside, to put some reps at guard and center on film, because he said, I have it all. If they want to see me play tackle, they can watch 4 years at West Virginia and see me play both right and left. I need to show here. Now he struggled a little bit, especially in the first couple of days, but he kind of worked the kinks out, so on and so forth. So he's a guy that I thought is still good. I still hold him in a high regard in terms of evaluation and prospect, but the transition from outside to inside was definitely something that I didn't think was going to be as tenuous or difficult for him. So yeah, listen, there's good and there's bad, and there's all that in between. And it's a fun week nonetheless. It's a fun week for us. I'm sure it's an even better week for the players. They're introduced to 32 different teams and front offices and scouts and the whole nine. So it's a whirlwind, man. And, I couldn't ask for anything more. Like for adults, it's like Christmas week for adults, in the football realm. So
for sure.
Why don't we get into this mock draft again, folks? The channel is Project Prospect with Dom C. Please like, subscribe. Go ahead and follow Parker on Twitter as well It's at Parker Blake 60. He does great writing for TWSN as well. A great follow on Twitter if you're interested in the Bengals, if you're interested in prospects or drafts or anything like that. Parker's, one of the good guys here. So we're gonna get into this. Let me bring this up. Boom. Let me bring this down. Boom. Here we go. Mock draft. All the teams are selected. A flip of the coin has decided that Parker will be selecting for all the AFC teams, and I will be taking the NFC teams. Not going to do any trades. Going to try to get through this and fire away and give you our thoughts on how things might shake up post Senior Bowl. And again, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you before you guys get all crazy in the comments, it's a mock draft. It's an exercise. It's not anything that's written in stone. It's February 1st. It's a whole lot of things that are going to be different and change before the draft come, the end of April. So it's an exercise. Let's see who fits where or who might look better with this team, so on and so forth. It's just our opinions and it's just for fun. So enjoy it. With that being said, let's get into it, my friend. You are on the clock for 2. Tennessee leading us off. Go ahead, Parker.
Yeah, I always struggle with mock drafts and riding the line between what I would do, what I think the team will do, and together what the team should do.
Yeah.
But I feel like my hot take is the first overall pick. I know a lot of people go quarterback for the Titans. I actually really like getting Travis Hunter to Tennessee purely because I think they're in a position where obviously you're picking number 1 and you have a lot of needs on your team. And so what better thing to do than get a player who has versatility and is just a good football player to add to your team. And Travis Hunter does all of those things.
Yeah. I've seen more and more. Listen, again, this is our take, our opinions, our ideas right here, right now. Tennessee could very well go quarterback, but if they, it would make sense if they don't, especially if you're not that high on this quarterback class, right? We know that their quarterbacks are always pushed up every year. This year, I think a lot of teams are going to be pushing a little harder to try to force these square pegs into a round hole. So, if you're a year or 2 or 3 away and you have a bare boned roster like Tennessee or like the next team, Cleveland here that I'm going to talk about, you're going to talk about, then it might make sense to just sit and not force something that doesn't have to be forced. So Travis Hunter's a pick. Tell us about Cleveland, brother.
I think Cleveland's going to be really frustrated if this is the first overall pick because I think they have their eyes on a Travis Hunter for, again, like you said, a lot of the same reasons where it's just like we need to bring in a good football player and just find how he fits our team best. However, I like this selection for the Browns because they're a very defensive focused team. I feel like they, playing the AFC North football kind of mentality, I feel like they like the best defense they can field, and the offense will figure itself out. And that's why I actually really like Will Johnson to the Browns at 2.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, and listen, with whatever's going on with Deshaun Watson and that contract, whether he starts this year or not, or whether they're just biding their time until they can move on. Releasing him right now is just an impossibility with that cap hit. So
Yep.
build and find the bridge is really a way that I would go as well for Cleveland. I'm not on team quarterback for Cleveland. However, the Giants are in a different situation, and I am on team quarterback for the Giants.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to explain why. The Giants, arguably might have one of the 5 worst overall rosters in football. This is a team that I think could sit here and pluck one of those top tier prospects like the 2 that just went off the board, or an Abdul Carter, so on and so forth. However, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane are really fighting for their lives. They're scrapping. They're hanging on by a thread here. And I think, as a job security measure, they're going to need to hitch their wagon to something or someone that might give them a little bit of leeway in case the road gets rocky in 2025 as it did in 2024. Right now, they only have Tommy DeVito at quarterback on the roster. He's not starting caliber. He's probably not 53-man caliber, if we're being honest. I'm going to go ahead and give Cam Ward. I don't think Cam Ward's the best quarterback in this class. He didn't grade out the best for me. However, I think he has that he's got obviously great arm talent. I think he's got the wherewithal to really elevate players around him more so than a guy like Shador or any of the other quarterbacks who might have a little bit higher of a floor than Cam Ward, but also might not have that extra oomph or pizzazz to really elevate the players around him. Where I think Cam Ward can. There's going to be some warts in his game. I don't think Cam Ward is a perfect quarterback prospect. I don't think if it wasn't this draft, we wouldn't be calling his name out this quick, but it is. And, you can't compare apples to oranges. They're going to need a quarterback. They're going to need something to hang their hat on. So, Cam Ward, welcome to New Jersey. And you're up with the Patriots. And, oh, God, you're up for 4 in a row, man. A lot of Parker right now. Let's rock.
Going on a run to kick this thing off. No, I think the Patriots are. I think obviously all these teams are in unique situations, but I think it's fun how like all of these I would say top 4 teams are in vastly different stages of team building, and it makes it fun where they're not all really competing for the same draft picks at the top. You can argue, a New York and a Tennessee might be, but overall they're all kind of looking for different things, and that's where I think the Patriots are the first team to really hit the board that has a legitimate offensive line need, but also has a quarterback they feel confident in. So let's build this team around a Drake May. And they always say you're either looking for a weapon or you're looking for protection when you have the young quarterback. And as an offensive line guy, we're looking for protection.
Yeah.
I'm not very high on either of the two, what's considered the top tackles in this class, but I think Kelvin Banks is a great add for the Patriots because he's going to be able to at least handle some power. He's going to be able to not get just collapsed into the pocket. That pocket might get shortened, but I think Drake May has really good pocket awareness, a great pocket presence, and he can avoid these guys that are rushing the edge trying to run the hoop. What he can't avoid is when that tackle is getting run right into his face. I think Kelvin Banks will achieve that for him and force guys around the edge and allow him to step up into that pocket and, overall over time develop as a quarterback.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Banks. Not my favorite prospect, but a good one nonetheless. For a guy that big, he moves very well. He plays a lot better in space than I expected him to be on film. I would love, and he's going to need to figure out and try to limit the penalties. Both of those Texas tackles are way too grabby and got penalized way too much. To that stuff that good coaching is going to have to clean up. And they just revamped the coaching staff and a lot of the pieces in there in New England, so they'll be able to straighten that out. Go ahead with Jacksonville up at 5.
Yeah, I've always said that football teams are built inside out, though I feel like a lot of people don't agree with that. It starts on the interior of both sides of the line, and that spreads out to help the collective whole. And so again, Jacksonville, a bad team, needs a lot of pieces, but if you look at their needs, it's interior offensive line and it's defensive interior. And right now we're sitting on the board. We have a top-level player in Mason Graham sitting there that I feel like is an instant value add for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's where we're going to send him.
Yeah, and this is a player and a team that you're hearing a lot more buzz. You're seeing it amongst, the evaluators or prognosticators matching up very well, and it makes sense. Listen, you put a defensive front out there, with Mason Graham, with Josh Allen Hines, or Hines Allen. Is it Allen Hines or Hines Allen? Hines Allen. Yeah, and the other, the big kid that they took number 1 overall a couple years ago. You got some weapons, like you said. Offensive-minded head coach in there now. I think he's going to be able to, make some lemonade out of the lemons that they got there. And I think you're right. It's time to fortify some of the interior, fortify the trenches. I like the fit of Mason Graham to Jacksonville. So what are we doing with the Raiders?
The Raiders is one I struggle with because personally, I see this being a draft where quarterbacks should slide. However, the NFL being the NFL, I don't see the quarterbacks legitimately sliding. So like when I mock with myself in the quarterback slide, I like going receiver here. And considering I don't know what you're thinking over there, and I don't know what I'm going to be feeling for these next teams, let's go get the guy that the cursor was already on and go get Ted McMillan. Just add a weapon to this team for whatever quarterback is able to land here. At least we know if it's not one of the top guys or a guy that we see as the top guy is the Raiders, at least he's going to have a weapon day one that he can not only build a bond with, but actually rely on outside of Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I love it. And listen, whether he's, the answer, probably not, but they do have Gardner Minshew and AOC both under contract for next year, relatively cheap. It doesn't, precede them from going and maybe scouring the quarterback market for another bridge guy. This might be a spot where Sam Darnold comes in and lands. So I don't know if matching them up with a quarterback or forcing a quarterback here is really necessary. So I like the idea of Ted McMillan. You can't go wrong with a receiver like that. Now you have weapons, on both sides of the field. So this is an important one. This is an important one. My Jets fans are the ones who usually are in and out of these streams. So get it right, my friend. I'm leaving it on you.
I know, man. This is like where all the scrutiny comes, and we're only a pick 7. So I'm worried about this one, but I feel like if anyone is ready to handle the bright lights in New York, it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, who's going to live and thrive in that environment. They need a quarterback. They need to find a way to convince Garrett Wilson that he shouldn't run away and go find a new team unless Jets fans want that. I wouldn't want that personally. I don't know where you guys are at.
No.
But I think you get a high profile guy like Shedeur who theoretically feels like he thrives in the spotlight, good or bad. He's been through both throughout his career in college already. Mm-hmm. Why not throw him into New York where I feel like he can handle that situation, but also already has weapons in place again where he has a Garrett Wilson. He has a really fun, dynamic running back room. And I feel like really they're only an O-line away from turning this offense into something that could be really formidable in the AFC East.
Yeah, listen, if the board fell like this, I think most people would be clamoring for Shedeur Sanders, whether or not Aaron Rodgers retires, because even if he, or comes back, I should say, because even if he does, it's real short term. The pick is polarizing. I know there's a lot that comes with Shedeur Sanders. He graded out as the best quarterback for me. I know I'm in the minority of that, and I'll stand on that. I'll stand on my 2 feet there. Maybe like we talked about Cam Ward, that high ceiling, maybe a lower floor. I think it's the opposite for Shedeur Sanders. Where I think he's going to be. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way. I really like the way he processes the field and through his reads. I really like the way he throws with anticipation and throws his guys open. He's a tough son of a bitch. You got to call it what it is. Oh, yeah. He stands in there in the pocket. He was constantly under pressure in Colorado. And I know that some people might say he doesn't, move through the pocket very well, and he'll try to backtrack and so on and so forth. But he was under duress a lot of the time during these past 2 seasons, and I think I think his best work is yet to come. Am I considering Shedeur Sanders an All-Pro, of the future or Gold Jacket winner? No, I'm not comfortable saying that yet. But I think he could do worse. I think he has he's one of the 2 quarterbacks that I think can come in and start, even if it's a guy that is going to go through his struggles, a guy that might not put the team on his shoulders and win too many games directly early on. But I don't think the floor is that low. And listen, Tanner Engstrom, our new offense coordinator who came from Detroit, had a very similar high floor, low ceiling player in Jared Goff. Again, not comping Shedeur to Jared Goff, but it worked for that, right? You always thought of Jared Goff as one of those middling to lower middling kind of starting quarterbacks, and Christ, he threw for they had 500 and something points last year. So maybe the magic is in Engstrom. That's what I'm going to hang my hat on. So I think it's the right pick right there, the way this board fell. You can make an argument for Abdul Carter, but considering the Jet situation, you got to go. If you have a chance to take a shot at a quarterback, do it and keep swinging at the quarterbacks until you get it right. So that brings me up.
You're going on a run. I will say you got what, like 5 teams in a row right here.
I do. I go on a little run here. Now it's my turn. And this one's pretty easy. I'm not going to hesitate too much. Abdul Carter is going to be the pick. They need an edge presence. They need somebody who can affect the game, who can get pressures, maybe close home some of those sacks. The athletic upside of a guy like Carter is ridiculous. 1 year, really fully 1 year as a pure edge rusher. He's got enough, experience and skills that if you need him to drop off, you run some of those zone dogs where you want to, bring back or, drop off some of those defensive linemen. He can do that. I think he'll roam free, and not just be, hand in the dirt, rushing off the edge. I think you'll see him, line up in an A gap. I think you'll see him line up on both sides, whether it's hand in the dirt, on 2 feet. The athleticism, the bend, the twitchiness that he plays with, the violence, that he generates rushing off the end. The pass rush bag, the tool set is still developing, as is his true ability to set the edge as a run defender. But that's not what you're bringing him in here for right now. You're banking on the traits and the upside of this guy that in 2 to 3 years, he's an all-pro. So Abdul Carter is going to be the pick. For me, that's an easy one here. Leads me up with the Saints next. Saints can go a bunch of different ways. I like when Mason Graham falls. I like when Will Johnson falls. I think those are 2 guys that can step in. They spent a first-round pick last year on Talise Fuanga. And he, listen, he was a guy that, I had to eat some crow on. Although I like the prospect, I really struggled on the idea of him staying at tackle in the pro. And not only did he stay at tackle, he moved over left tackle and did a pretty good job. They're in cap hell. There's so much work that needs to be done on that team. But I do know that they have a type, right? They like physical offensive linemen. And they like big, nasty defenders that are versatile. Not only, those 240, 250 pound, quick, bendy, fast twitch athletes around the end, but they like guys who can be big, can be stout at the point of attack, and can power rush. To me, Shamar Stewart's a perfect fit here for the Saints. He could be your Cam Jordan replacement. He could start opposite of Cam. If Cam comes back next year, I'm not sure if he's retired yet or if he's in the process of. But if not, I think this is a seamless transition. A guy this big shouldn't move as good as he does, and the power in his hands, the power in his lower body. Fitting the run's not going to be a problem with Shamar Stewart. I'm going to take him here for the Saints, and leads me up to the Bears. And I think everyone wants to immediately go to the offensive line after watching, Caleb run for his life last year. I think he was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. To me, the way this class is, and I don't know how you feel about this, Parker. I think the top end, and you kind of talked about it when you picked for the Patriots. But to me, the top end of this offensive line class isn't necessarily the strong point. The strong point is the value of the guys in rounds 2, 3, and 4, where the Bears have 2 second-round picks. So I'm going to hold off on the offensive line right now. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Ashton Genty. You need to, Ben Johnson, I'm assuming, is going to run some sort of similar scheme. I mean, his scheme in Detroit with all the points and all the, innovative, crazy plays that you saw was really run based. They went as far as Montgomery and Gibbs took them. So they already have, their speedy, third down back, shifty receiving running back there in Swift, who can, kind of try to play that Gibbs role. Now give me some power. Now give me the guy who, with the ball in his hands, it just forces missed tackles. Has probably the sickest contact balance that I've seen in a running back in many many years. I think that this guy can be more than what Montgomery was for Ben Johnson in Detroit. So Ashton Davis is going to be the pick, or Ashton Jeanty. It's from Boise State's going to be the pick here. You think 10 is too high for a running back, even
No,
one of Jeanty's caliber?
I'm definitely, and it's contradictory to my what I love about football and offensive line and the run game. But I'm definitely anti running back as far as drafting him in the first round, paying them all this money. I've always been, you draft a running back, you burn him out for 4 years, and you drafted the guy in year 3 that's going to replace him. However, I think you bring up a great point as far as if you look at this running back room and you don't look at Jeanty as a bell cow back, but you look at him or this room in general as like an inverse version of what Detroit had, right? Where Montgomery was kind of, I know it was more 50-50 as far as snaps, but the show was all about Gibbs. Whereas this show would be more about Jeanty, though they can still get the 50-50 snap load. And that's what I feel like Jeanty needs to be successful. And I think being with a guy like Ben Johnson can really maximize his potential. And I think even the potential with both of those running backs and a more mobile quarterback like a Caleb Williams really opens up possibilities as far as where the league is kind of headed and where I hope it heads at least. And I actually really love this pick, especially at 10. I don't love him going, some of the guys, just project him, like not project him, but mock him top 5 every now and then, or even top 7. I love this kind of 8 to 12 range for him as far as where his value really starts.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, Chicago's in a weird spot. Like, if they went and plugged an offensive lineman here, I wouldn't be surprised. If they moved to the defensive lineman and plugged one of those guys, whether it's a Harmon from Oregon or Walter Nolan or something like that, I wouldn't be surprised either. But to me, you look at Ben Johnson's gonna, want to get his guy, and I just don't think the combination of Swift and Rashawn Johnson is going to really do it. I think you need a little bit more juice if you're going to generate the type of and the style of offense that Ben Johnson wants to run, which is run first. As crazy as it is, people don't realize that the crazy trickery, the innovative schemes and sets and trick plays and all that stuff is a direct result of them being able to run the ball down your throat when they want to. So Jeanty for me is a pick here. For Chicago, that makes sense. Leads me up with San Francisco. Man, I don't know how much, as good as he is, and Canton is waiting for Trent Williams. That's a given. I don't know how I really feel about Colton McKivitz. I know he's under contract, but to me, he's a borderline, he's a borderline roster guy. I think that they have so much money invested in the skill positions here on offense, and with an offensive mind like Shanahan, you have to do the best to protect those assets, right? Brock Purdy's the best when he has time and he's able to process and see what's going on post snap, get through his reads and so on and so forth. You hope to get a healthy Brandon Ayuk back. You have a little bit of time left, a little juice in the tank left in Debo if he's still on the roster, in guys like George Kittle. So I'm going to protect them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Armand Membo off the board here. I think he's shown enough to me on film that he can stay at right tackle. And there's your Colton McKivitz replacement. If not, if you need to move him inside the guard, I think he's already, probably head and shoulders better than Aaron Banks. I think you have a piece that might be able to step in for Trent Williams once Trent Williams backs it up. So to me, this is going to be a guy that has that guard tackle flexibility. I really like Membo. I don't know where you stand on. I know you're an O-line guru, but I really, really like the way he plays. I love everything that he's put on film. The footwork gets a little clunky. Footwork can get a little sloppy at times, but high-end athlete. I think he'll fit the outside zone very well, whether it's from the inside or at tackle. Membo is going to be the pick here.
I think the thing that I've projected most with the Niners is just getting a versatile offensive lineman. And I mean, they have an interior flexible guy in Dominic Pooney. I think that was a great pick for them. And now they can get, I always, talk about offensive lines, and I say you want your starting five, and then out of that next three, typically you have a game day 8. You want, a center guard flex guy, a guard tackle flex guy, and a swing tackle. And I think even if Membu doesn't find a way to find the field early on, because I do think he is a little raw, has a little ways to go. I love his upside, and I love the fact that, kind of like you mentioned, he can go both guard or tackle. So whatever job he's able to win, I think he does find the field as a rookie. And I think, again, long term, that's a great value add as far as what they need and what they just need to bring into this line to just kind of, instead of having to recycle and trash it and start over, they're able to kind of reload preemptively. I really love that pick.
Yeah, and that pick, and everyone's offensive line board is going to be completely different. Like this might, if I was more secure, if we were later in the process and all the medicals checked out on Josh Simmons, that might be a good slot for Josh Simmons as well because of his, experience playing both left and right tackle. He can start at right. That he can play left. Again, with Membo, it's a little bit more of a projection that you think he can get to the left side if you need it. But again, at worst, that you have a guy that can slide inside as well. So if Josh Simmons was healthy, if I can guarantee that, a patella tendon is different than an ACL, man. It's completely different rehab, completely different outlook coming back from it. And I'm not saying that he can't, but as we stand here February 1st, I'm just not comfortable taking a guy coming off a major injury like that this early.
For sure.
And that leads me up to Dallas. Dallas got a lot of needs. They're another team that, spent a first-round pick last year on a tackle, on a project tackle. If I do say so myself, I don't say that with disrespect, but that was just my evaluation of him. I don't know how you felt. I didn't think that he was necessarily ready to play. They got Smith in there. Obviously, Zach Martin's retiring. They're going to have to replace him. It could be offensive line. I think that again, knowing that this class, the juice of the offensive line can come in later rounds, although they don't have a fourth rounder, which they did get rid of. I'm going to shy away from the offensive side of the ball here. I'm going to go with one of my guys here. You look at the defense. They struggled. They struggled to stop the run. I'm not going to plug somebody up front, but I'm going to plug in somebody who I think can be the real centerpiece of that, upgrading that run defense. A guy that is much higher on my board than many others. A guy that just will turn 21 come April. He flies all over the field. He plays downhill violently. A big guy, knowing that Demarion Overshone had that major leg injury later in the year. I don't know what what his status is going to be for this year. I'm going to take Jihad Campbell out of Alabama to man the mic for them and really control the defense and be that tone setter in the run fits and up at the line in the phone booth, so on and so forth. Something that they've missed, again, different defensive scheme. They bring in Eberflus, who, where I think, even though body size, he might be a little bigger than your typical, what you think in that Eberflus, zone heavy defense, might be a little bit bigger of a linebacker than he's used. But man, this guy can move. He can shed blocks and play downhill. He can scrape and play sideline to sideline. Like I said, he's shot out like a rocket. He's violent. I love the way he finishes tackles. I think Jihad Campbell is a phenomenal prospect. He's a guy 5 years from now we want to look back and say he's the best in this class. So he's going to be my pick here for the Cowboys.
I've seen so many Bengals fans like clamoring for him at 17, and I've seen him projected to the Bengals at 17, and I'm kind of glad that he went at 12 because that means he's not an option for the Bengals at 17 because the guy that I have in mind, who is still sliding, though he
Yeah.
should probably. It's still available. So I love the pick. Great
Yeah.
choice.
And listen, people are going to make the argument you don't take an off-ball linebacker this high. You do if you have a glaring hole
Correct.
on the defense and a team that can't stop a nosebleed versus the run. That's the way I look at it. I'm looking at this is a guy that I know can come in and play. I'm really confident in that. I know that he can come in and play effective snaps early on. And really hasn't even reached his physical potential yet, just turning 21. I think there's a lot to like about Jahad Campbell, but I digress. You're up for 2. Let us have it with the Dolphins.
Yeah, no, I think it's a sneaky pick. I love it. And this fell perfectly because I think I have my next 3 picks planned out based on how the board's going. I love Malachi Starks here. I know a lot of people have talked about this even becoming like a Xavier Watts type pick with his coverage ability, but I think this is where the board really aligns with mine as far as value goes. I have Malachi Starks very similarly to where PFF has him ranked right now. And I think he's one of the best safeties I've seen in a minute. I'm not going to say since Kyle Hamilton, but I've seen a lot of safeties, and I think he, does it all. I think he's a good run fitter. I think he's very rangy. I think he could, really clean up a lot of the fundamental stuff, but that's what coaching's for. So go get the guy with the upside. Go get the guy that just makes your team better, and go get the guy that you really just need a guy at that position. So I think Malachi Starks is a great fit. And I think 14 might be, I think every year there's a couple picks in the first round where you feel pretty solid about it through a majority of the process. And I feel like the Colts have been one of those teams the last few years that people have been trying to force a certain position to for a while now, and they just never go for it. However, I think this is the year. I do think this is the year that they go out there and they go get a Tyler Warren because they need a tight end to help out the rookie. I've always said rookie quarterback's best friend is a good tight end. And Anthony Richardson, with his struggles, I don't think they're ready to give up on him yet. But you need to give him something that he can check down to, he can rely on in tough situations, whether it's pressure or it's just interesting looks that he can't figure out. The tight end can be available. And you get a guy in Tyler Warren that's explosive, has that potential, can be more of a quote-unquote bell cow tight end where he's getting a high volume of reps. I know you have great receivers around on that team. I think this really rounds out that passing attack. And this is really something that will allow them to say, this is the year. If Anthony Richardson can't make it with this cast around him, maybe he's not the guy. I love that pick for the Colts.
Yeah, I mean that's as stock and of a selection that comes. It's a perfect fit. It's a perfect marriage for every reason that you just said. But even more so, I really like the Malachi Starks pick. I've done it myself for Miami. Javon Holland's a free agent. They're having cap issues. You're probably not going to pay Javon Holland the 15, 16, 17 million that he's going to be looking for, in the open market. So why not replace him with a player who 3 years from now could be better, right?
Yeah.
And again, not throwing shade at Holland. I think he's a great player. But, when you're strapped up against the cap, when you're paying a quarterback $55 million and you're paying a receiver, 2 receivers, $30 million apiece, you're going to have to get cheaper at some positions. So safety is a good one to do that. So I love both of those picks. And it leads me up here with the Falcons. Not too hard of a pick for me. It's going to be Mike Green. I think if anyone has, well, I shouldn't say this. Mike Green is one of many who have really solidified their position or raised their stock or value. Not only for the one viral rep, against, oh my God, the Oregon tackle. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name. I'm sorry about that. Not only for the one rep, but really just for doing what we talked about earlier in the show. Like he put, 3 days of practice or 2 days of practice in really, and he showed everything that you saw on film. Right? You saw the bend, you saw the speed, you saw the ridiculous, transition of speed to power. And he did it at 10 or 11 pounds heavier than we thought he was going to come in. Mike Green's going to be a menace, and if anyone in this league out of the 32 teams needs an edge presence, it's Atlanta. So for me, that's an easy fit. And so is this one here. Will Campbell is going to be, plug and play, I think, for the next 10 to 12 years. The question is where, right? Some people think, some people think arm size and the movement skills are going to kind of force him inside. I think his power profile is a lot better. You watch him sometimes; he's a little stiff. Personally, and I'd love to hear you. I know you're the O-line guru, but you watch him in some of those vertical sets and those 45 sets. It just doesn't look comfortable to me. It just doesn't seem like he's going to be a pure tackle. But I think he could be a very, very good long-term interior guy for the Cardinals with that Joe Thuney flexibility where you need him to pump outside for a couple games, whether it's an injury, whether it's something, whether you need to move some stuff around. I think he can hold his own. I'm not saying I don't think he can play tackle. I just think he's going to be a better guard. And the Cardinals are a spot. They just hired a new offensive line coach. From the college ranks. I think Ohio State's offensive line coach is now over there in Arizona. You get a guy who's in Will Campbell who is technically sound. I think the power profile that he plays with. You watch him get into the hip, on those down blocks. It gets into those hips of the defensive lineman, displaces them right off their spot. Something that could line up perfectly next to Paris Johnson Jr. that they have there in Arizona. So. Before you get to your pick, tell me your thoughts on Campbell, inside or outside. Where are you playing him?
For sure. No, like I said earlier, I don't love either of these top tackles, but I think Will Campbell projects great as a guard. I think he plays like a guard. He's built like a guard. I do worry about flexibility issues. I think the upright posture makes me worry about just stiffness and how that can affect longevity or handle bend. But don't really need to worry about too much bend when you're bumping into guards. So I think that really crosses off that concern for me and really elevates his profile. Again, I think he's going to be a great fit at guard. I love putting him next to Paris Johnson. I like his demeanor. I like what he can do in the run game. Mm-hmm. And I think is only better as a pass protector as a guard. So I love the pick, love the fit. Another spot where if Josh Simmons was healthy, I can see him definitely going there again with the former coach. But I think this is a perfect spot for Will Campbell.
For sure. Now let him have it. Who dat, right? Let's see who did. First off, before you say anything, did the guy you were honing in on, did he fall?
Yes, he did, and I'm actually pumped that Will Campbell went at 16 because I worry, which sounds weird, but I worry that Will Campbell is going to be in the running if he does make it to 17. However, I feel like the guy that I have in mind is a much more surefire pick, doesn't have to move positions, gets to honestly could play the exact same position he played for his tenure in college. The Bengals like team captains. This guy's been a captain for his team, just a great character guy. Again, one of the most surefire prospects I have in this class. Tyler Booker is who I'm going to mock for the Bengals nonstop in the first round until someone gives me a reason not to. I've been trying to figure out why he's so low on PFF's board. I think he's one of the most surefire players in this class, regardless of position. He's one of my few first-round grades. I know people think you need to have 32 first-round grades, but that's not the case. I think at most my board's going to cap out 17, and he's going to be one of those 17. And if they're not trading back out of 17 because the board falls like this, I hope they get a guy like Tyler Booker. They had a terrible issue with interior offensive linemen. They kind of need to roll over just the interior of that room. They're going to have 3 guys on contract years going into 2025 on the interior. Tyler Booker really solves that problem. And even if he can't find the field early for some reason, he's able to just improve the depth, which is a terrible need also in Cincinnati. I just think this guy can be a cornerstone. Would love to have him next to either Orlando Brown Jr. or Amarius Mims. We're just going to make this line massive and physical and just dominant, not only in the run game, but keeping Joe Burrow upright because that has been an issue throughout his career. Let's start solidifying that wall in front of him.
Yeah. Listen, he's a phenomenal player. He didn't get a first round grade for me, but he's in that realm of the top 35, top 40 guys that I graded out. This is an area where I can see this is probably the from 15 to 17 is probably his high, and I don't see him dropping past pick 40. So this is the realm where if you are committed and you love a guy like Booker, you know, in this instance, who cares about what PFF ranks him at? But in real NFL terms, if you like a guy like Booker, you better go get him now, because if you try to wait and hope that he falls to the next round, somebody else is gonna, see the benefits and the positives of his game. I will say this, and not knocking the pick or not knocking the player. I love him. I don't think that a lot of teams are going to hold the same sentiment, because I think that he's a little scheme specific. I don't know if he's going to be a match for a lot of offenses who really want their guys to be able to play and move in space. I don't know if that's Booker's strongest suit, but when you talk about massive, lower half, from hips to ass to legs, that anchor, that re-anchor that he has is ridiculous. The ability on duos is going to be crazy, especially if he's, whichever tackle he's next to, you put him and Mims there on a duo block there, and you can kiss the defensive lineman goodbye. So I love it. I love Booker. I'm up with Seattle. Booker would be a great fit there. Let's call a spade, man. I think he would be a perfect fit. Their interior line, their line in general, huge Charles Cross fan. I am. I loved him. I loved him in college. There was questions about how he would, translate from that Ole Miss offense where he wasn't asked to really do anything, at the line of scrimmage in terms of run blocking in a phone booth. Has transitioned very well, I think. The rest of the line right now is kind of a crap shot, right? Is Abe Lucas going to stay healthy at right tackle? He hasn't done it yet. Oluwatimi, the center, now going into his third year, still kind of iffy if he's going to be a real starter. They brought in Laken Tomlinson, a free agent signing from the Jets last year, who had a kind of a resurgence or rebound year, but he's also going to be 33 and probably on his last legs. They drafted Christian Haynes, who was a guy, he was in my top 25 last year coming out of UConn. He couldn't sniff the field. I don't know what happened there. I just don't know. So to me, I think you got maybe 1 year left with Geno. You got two really good running backs. I think that's a team that still wants to build their offense around the run and really utilize the pass off of their run sets. So I'm going to stay on the offensive line for them. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to this is where I'm going to have Josh Connolly come off. All right. Connolly, for me, I think, it comes in and plays right tackle. Even though he's been a left tackle at college, I think that transition is going to be fine for him. He can battle out with Abe Lucas. At worst, he's athletic. He's strong. I think he can start inside before maybe finalizing that right tackle spot over a year or two, if you want to, put your best five out there. So I love the flexibility that Connolly has. I think he had a really, really good Senior Bowl week, minus the one rep that we all saw. And again, I've watched that play, and I broke down and I talked about that play, and you saw it as well. He was so concerned. At least this is my take on it. He was so concerned on that speed and that twitch that Green had on the outside, that he tried. He just got a little sloppy with his footwork in that set. And tried to get there too deep. His feet got together, and Mike Green transferred that speed to power and went right through his chest. So, it's a rep that he's going to learn from. It's a rep that you're not going to see often. And all the one-on-ones before and after that, for the most part, were pretty dominant by Josh Connolly Jr. So I'm going to keep him out west. He's going to be the pick there for Seattle.
No, I love that pick. I actually really love his versatility as well, kind of like you mentioned, where you throw him in that right tackle battle, and then no matter where it goes, worst case scenario, you bump him into guard. I think he had a lot of great guard reps this week. It's always great to see at the Senior Bowl, see what these guys do in practice. I don't think you would have seen him. I don't think he got any reps today in the game at guard. However, throughout the week, they were rotating him at both, and I thought he showed a lot of high-end potential as a guard. So again, he goes out there, battles with Abe Lucas, and kind of like you said, I was a fan both Cross and Lucas in that process. I think they both were good value adds to the team, but Lucas not being able to stay healthy, let Connerly go in there. And then even if he doesn't win the battle in camp, and Lucas starts at right tackle, maybe he bumps into guard. If Lucas goes down, you just bump him right back out there to tackle, and you have now a depth piece that you can work with. And so
Yeah.
I love that fit. It's just I worry about Pat Hyde. I think he's got leverage issues. Again, more of a flexibility thing. But I love the flexibility. I think that's really what Seattle values. I love the pick.
Yeah, and like I said, and reiterating what you said as well, he could easily win the battle at right tackle, or you put your best five forward and you move him in the guard, and you're advantage Seattle whichever way it goes. So to me, it's a good fit. Keep him out west, keep him home. I'm up with Tampa Bay. You look at Tampa Bay, you look at Todd Bowles. The guy knows how to coach defense. He really does. I'm curious to see how the offense is going to kind of rebound now that Liam Cohen's out. I know they promoted somebody up, so the bones and the core is still there. You wonder if Godwin's coming back. I would assume he's going to be, highly coveted in the free agent market, but I could also see him, Tampa Bay kind of, they keep their own. So I could see him coming back. You got Bucky Irvin, who had a great rookie year. I'm not necessarily so worried about that offense. Where I am worried about is that Todd Bowles defense. As I said, he's a phenomenal coach. He knows how to scheme. He knows how to go after it. I love the aggressive nature that the Tampa Bay the defense plays with as a whole. I think that this is a really, really good spot for Jihad Campbell, but he's off the board. So in a team that relies so much on their cornerbacks being able to press and play man coverage along, I'm going to go ahead and fill the defensive backfield and kind of backfill them. I'm going to go with Azariah Thomas, because I think scheme-wise, whether it's him or Trey Amos, I like those guys in press man the most. He's sticky. I love the way he recovers well. He's always, you watch Azariah Thomas, he's always punching through the ball, even if somebody gets a step on him, his handwork is clean. He plays with that little bit of a dog. This might be a little high, but I don't necessarily think so. I think schematically, he's a perfect fit for what Todd Bowles wants to do on defense. He wants guys that are going to get physical, that are going to be able to get in receivers' faces, get hands on them real quick, and still have enough, hip fluidity and make up speed to trail, stay in that hip pocket and trail and make a play down the field. So Azariah Thomas is going to be the pick for Tampa Bay.
Man, Azariah Thomas is one of my favorite corners in the class, man. Like
Yeah.
I know that's probably a little higher, probably a lot higher than consensus is, but watching his film and then watching him in person, another Senior Bowl guy, like seeing him move is crazy. And the way that he's able to keep up with receivers and run routes for receivers. I love his physicality off the line of scrimmage. Yep. I love his ability to fit the run. I just think he's a great cornerback. Love this pick. I think it's great value at 19.
Yeah. Denver. What are we doing with Denver? You go 1, 2, 3 in a row. So let us know.
Done. I'm getting a receiver for Denver. I think they really need a receiver. Bo Nix needs another weapon. Would like to see a step from Troy Franklin. I'm a big Troy Franklin fan. Love the fit with Bo Nix. I think they can honestly be in the market for another Oregon wide receiver. But I like, I have the two receivers that are at the top of the board right now for PFF pretty closely ranked. But I'm going to take what is nitpicky, but the bigger target. It's not a lot bigger, but it's a bigger target. And I think that's what Bo Nix needs. Keep this offense easy. Keep it easy to hit. Emeka Egbuka, you are a Denver Bronco.
Yeah, and he's my wide receiver 2 in the class. So I'm with it, and that's no shade on Burden or whomever else. There's other guys that people have higher. I just think Emeka Egbuka is so clean and nuanced at the top of his stem with his route running. He understands how to find the soft spots in zone. He can be that quarterback's safety valve and comfort, like warm comfort blanket in the middle of the field. I think he has enough versatility that if you ask him to play outside, he can. But, similar to I'm not comping him to it, but like similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown, like
Yeah.
if he does in the slot as good as he is, if he's as good as he is in the slot, why move him out? So I love this pick. I think it's a great fit. There's a lot of people that think tight end is the way to go, but if you get a good guy, who's as has a storied collegiate career. He's a great receiver for Ohio State. He wasn't good. He was great. Last year he battled through injuries. He had a little bit of a down year, but the year before and this year he was just absolute dynamite. So I love Mekabuka here. Pittsburgh's on the clock.
Yeah, no, and I feel like it's kind of the Ohio State path of the receiver, right? Yeah, JSN, who went in and is a slot receiver for Seattle. Now you're going to have Egbuka that's going to come in there and dominate the slot position for Pittsburgh in an offense that I think he's a great fit in. Pittsburgh, I think this pick's really easy for me, and people aren't going to like this pick. I don't know if I like this player at this spot, but I think it's a great fit because they seem to have a type. They have a type at quarterback, and Jalen Milroe fits that profile. I think they go get the guy. I think it's a little bit of a reach personally. I wouldn't make this pick if it were me, but I can see Mike Tomlin really liking what Jalen Milroe can bring to the table. And what I really like about this fit is personally, I feel like Jalen Milroe is a guy that has a lot of upside, but he needs to go somewhere that's willing to have some patience with him. I think what we saw them do with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, whether or not they keep either of those quarterbacks, they're probably going to keep one of the two of them. And what we saw them do with Justin Fields, where they gave him a little bit of run, then they were willing to kind of sit back on that, let him develop. They kind of saw the vision with him. Let Jalen Milroe go in there and compete with who I think is going to be the competition in Justin Fields. But get the best quarterback out there on the field. And then I think Mike Tomlin's a guy that's not afraid where he can play it week by week, and you can call it quarterback by committee, but he can get out there and whoever he feels like is either the best fit for the matchup or just is performing best at the time, he's going to get on the field. And I think this is a great spot for not only Jalen Milroe, but for Justin Fields and for the Pittsburgh Steelers to really find a quarterback that they feel confident in enough to run with long term.
Yeah, and I've been saying it, since the fall. Jalen Milroe is going to be a first round draft pick. You might not like the process, and you might not like the work he does between the hashes. Some people think he has trouble getting off his reads, and doesn't throw with anticipation. This is all stuff that is true, to an extent, but it's going to be secondary when teams look at what they project him to be 3-4 years from now, right? Few years back, coming out of Nevada, Jordan Love was, Jalen Milroe light in the sense that, he had a strong arm. He was a good athlete, but, people questioned, the head game that it takes to be the quarterback. He developed, he worked through, he rebuilt his mechanics, and now he's a $45 million a year player. I think Jalen Milroe, the traits are undeniable, and there's going to be teams that lean more on the traits and the projection than really what knowing that the product right now isn't the finished product. So he's going to be a first round pick. This to me is a match made in heaven. So I love it. You're up with the Chargers.
I mentioned it earlier, but I feel like there's two types of quarterbacks that you need to evaluate when you don't have one of the elite guys. You either have a rookie quarterback or a struggling quarterback. And I feel like right now, as much as you might love him, I'm still a fan of him. Justin Herbert is a struggling quarterback. He hasn't been in the best situations, but he's a struggling quarterback. And the best tool to help out or improve, quote unquote, a struggling quarterback or a rookie quarterback is a high quality tight end. I think with Jim Harbaugh there, with Justin Herbert needing the help that he needs, Colston Loveland's a great fit for LA and what they're just trying to do. I think he's a very well-rounded tight end. I know a lot of people see him as more of a receiver style tight end, but I think his blocking is kind of underrated. I think he's able to get it done. And again, looking back, who's the head coach of the Chargers? Jim Harbaugh. Who's going to be very familiar with Colston Loveland's game? Jim Harbaugh. I think this is a great fit and a great pick for the Chargers.
Yeah, no, it's one of those that makes sense. And I like that you talked about Loveland, and he somehow gets typecasted into that Evan Ingram role, like can't block, power slot. I think he's so much more than that. And, He's he's a really good route runner, but he's also an effective blocker as well. He's not George Kittle, as an inline, as an inline blocking tight end. That he's not, but the effort's there, the willingness is there, and I think that he's got the size. I think he can actually add more weight to that frame, which will only help him in that sense. I see a lot of development skill set similar to Trey McBride. Trey McBride, when he came into Carolina, really didn't jump out of the gates as one of the best tight ends. He had to really develop and hone in some of that stuff. Again, he was a good blocker, had to become an even better one, and I think similar paths could happen to Colston Loveland. But I think Colston Loveland might even be a tick more advanced as a route runner and as a receiver than Trey McBride when he came in. So I love the fit. I'm up with Green Bay. Is this the year that Green Bay solidifies takes a first round wide receiver? They clearly have a type, and they think that type can, get drafted in later rounds. I'm gonna bypass the wide receiver room again. Packers fans, don't get at me. I know you guys all want a receiver, but I look at the defense, right? You have Rashawn Gary on one side. You have Kingsley Agbignari, who kind of finally is starting to, find his way. I think as the season went on last year, in what was his third year, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, what was his third year? He's kind of becoming a good complement. I think that's a area that they can improve, but I don't know if you need to spend it right here. I'm more concerned about the backside of the defense, right? I don't know if Jair Alexander's going to be on this team, like flat out. Even if he is, he's getting older, right? Keyshawn Nixon's on the other side. They have Eric Stokes, I believe, still on the roster. Maybe his contract expires after this year. I'm not even sure. But defensive back is where I'm going to go. And again, they have their requirements and their guys. Trey almost fits the bill. He's got the size profile. He's got the length profile that they're going to look for. I think that he can come in and start next to Alexander if he's there. And if he's not, I think he can come in and play meaningful snaps as a rookie. He's a shutdown corner. People are going to question if he's got the long speed to do it. I think the physicality kind of trumps what he might be lacking in that long speed. And he just makes plays. Like I said, he shuts down complete half sides of the field in college. And I think you're going to see a lot of that profile play very well at the next level. So Trey Amos is going to be the pick.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of Trey Amos. I was glad to see him down here in Mobile because I had the same questions. I was like, I don't know if the long speed is there, but I love the physicality on film. And what I learned this week about Trey Amos is the acceleration that he has is kind of underrated in his game, where he's a physical guy and his get up and go and that physicality are a great pairing to kind of mitigate speed throughout routes at the line of scrimmage. And he's really able to hide kind of one of those main deficiencies in his game. And I'm, again, kind of like we talked about with Zaire Thomas, I'm a huge fan of Amos. I'm going to have him higher than probably consensus. I love this pick for Green Bay just for all the reasons that you said. Just great pick.
Yeah. And leaves me with Minnesota, who I think Trey Amos is a great fit there as well. Minnesota had a phenomenal year. I'm a big fan of Brian Flores. I love the way he schemes up defense. I love the way, the intensity that his guys play for. Like, he's a coach that, it seems gets the most out of his guys. They have a lot of free agents, a lot of holes on the roster, not a lot of starters coming back. So you can go, yeah. I think defensive back is a need. I don't know if I like the value of any of these guys. I'm still iffy on Benjamin Morrison as a prospect. I think the ball skills are there. I think he's very, very scheme specific. I think he's better. He's got those zone eyes. You like to let him kind of read and react on balls. I don't know if that's going to really be a pure fit for what Flores wants to do. But there is a guy here that I think will excel in Flores defense at a position of need as well, and that's Walter Nolan. You plug him in, in interior, getting at the quarterback, opposite of Grenard, opposite of oh my God, who's the other edge over there? Why can't I think of his name?
It's Hunter, isn't it? No.
Oh my God, I'm having such a brain fart.
Oh my goodness.
Who did they draft in the first round a couple years ago?
I hold on. We're pulling it up. I can't do this all night. Pollard, Phillips, Tillery, Grenard, Rodriguez, Redmond.
They just drafted somebody. Anyhow, nonetheless, we'll figure it out. But you plug Walter Nolan in there, I think he can affect the game. As a really forceful, pressing the pocket from the inside in the pass rush. I think at 315, 320 pounds, he's stout enough that he can handle the run. He's a guy that I think is going to fit very, very well in this Brian Flores defense. So Walter Nolan's going to be the pick, and you're up with Houston while I figure out who I was talking about on the edge there for Minnesota.
No, it's great. And that pick actually helps me out a lot. I was torn between two players here. One of them was Walter Nolan. I was kind of having the same debate with myself that I had with the wide receivers. I feel like I love the youth movement that Houston's going with on defense. I like that they're keeping it cheap, really bringing in quality young talent to bolster that defense, which allows them the opportunity to kind of pay some more pieces on that offense. Mm-hmm. I'm not opposed to going offensive line here. I would like a Josh Simmons. However, I don't think he has the interior flexibility that they're looking for. What I feel like is a great fit is defensive interior. I love this just whole class of interior defensive linemen. And the reason I was struggling between Nolan and Kenneth Grant is because I thought they need more of a run stopper. And I think Nolan's great against the run, but I think Grant more fits the mold of a run stuffer where he can really hold the point of attack at that line. He can demand a double team. He's not really a penetrator. He's a guy that's going to stop you, maybe not get a ton of TFLs at the next level, but he's going to not allow forward progress. You're going to run into him, and you're going to stop immediately. I think that's really what this defense is missing. I love the addition with that, with the juice they're able to bring off the edge, and I love that linebacking room. I think this is just a great pick for Houston and really feels a true need for them, and I think he's a day one impact guy.
Yeah, Kenneth Grant is somehow, I don't know if it's prospect fatigue or something like that, but he's somehow not being mentioned as much as he should as one of the top echelon guys in this interior class. Like you said, that true run stuffer, but he moves as well. Like, he might not get the, have the win rate or be the real pass rush presence as Mason Graham will be, or Walter Nolan for this case. But he can get at the quarterback too at 345 pounds. So Kenneth Grant's a great player. He's grossly underrated in my eyes from what I see, amongst the masses. Leads me up to the Rams. This is where I'm going to have Josh Simmons come off. It's fair to say that, he's a first round talent, a big question mark with that knee that we talked about. But I'm willing to take the chance here just because, they have Havenstein on the right side. They have Alaric Jackson on the left side. I believe Jackson might be up for a contract. Yeah, he is unrestricted as I look. But you can probably bring him back at a reasonable cost if Simmons isn't ready. But if he is, you have three tackles there, and like I said, you figure out you figure out which one's the best. I'll let the slide happen. If he's not healthy, if he is healthy, Josh Simmons is off the board way before this point. So I think the value is good here to roll the dice and take the chance. That'll leave you up with Baltimore.
I love that we're going to do these picks back to back personally, because what I feel like Baltimore needs is just more offensive line help. I like the direction that their offense is going. I like what they just are about as an offense. I think they can do a lot of great things. They obviously still have a lot of other needs, and I feel like this could be a really good spot for Luther Burden. However, I want to go with the O-line. I really want to bolster that group long term. And I'm going to go get the guy that played next to and then replaced Josh Simmons when he went down. And I like the flexibility of a guy like Donovan Jackson. I feel like it could be a little bit of a reach where people are going to have them on their boards. But I feel like, again, for what Baltimore is trying to do, I think a guy like Donovan Jackson is a great fit, and he's going to help them, again, stay on that track and keep this offense relatively intact from a schematic perspective and a stylistic perspective.
Yeah, and listen, and you talk about this offensive tackle class in particular having inside outside versatility. Doesn't get any better than Donovan Jackson, right? I thought he was a great guard,
Yeah.
And then they when Simmons got hurt, they asked him to kick outside, and he was dominant there as well. Another guy that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as he should, and at worst, you replace Falele with Donovan Jackson at right guard, and if not, he's your answer. At one of the tackle spots, whether you bring back the kid from the guy from Notre Dame that they have there, or the right tackle Makai. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Anyhow, Donovan Jackson is a great player. I think he's going to be a good pro. He's another guy that I think you can plug and play and forget it for 12 years. He's going to be a force. Leads me up with the Lions, which Donovan Jackson would be a great fit there as well. I thought about that. The interior could use some help. Another team that I think was just riddled with injuries up and down the defense, and that's probably where I'm going to go. I'm going to try to get Aiden Hutchinson some help here, and get that guy that I think can really, really complement him very well. I like Nick Scorton a lot. I think Nick Scorton is that strong side edge where he's in a even base front where he's going to be able to defend the run, fit the run very well, seal the edge very well. I question how his pass rush bag is really going to translate into the NFL. He did a lot. He's shown that he could do it at Purdue. He's shown that he could do it at Texas A&M. But he did a lot of it, really using that length and that power where, it's going to be different, and it's going to be different in the NFL. I'm going to have James Pierce come off the board here. I think that he's that complement to Aiden Hutchinson that they really need. I mean, 25 or 27% pass rush win rate, somebody that, even if it's, if he starts out as a DPR, is going to be effective. They just need some help along that defensive line. Why not get one of the, best pure pass rushers in this class? He might have some, size might be an issue. He might struggle to really find his niche early on as a 3-down player, but I don't think Detroit needs that. I think that team is stout enough. They just need those complementary pieces, which is what I think James Pierce is going to translate very well early on in his NFL career. So that's the pick for them. And I'm up for Washington. And this is where I'm going to have Luther Burden come off. Nice and easy for me. I think edge is in play. I think tackle's in play. But for me, the value of a guy like Burden to help take some of the heat off of Terry McLaurin. They juggled some of their slot guys. I know they took Luke McCaffrey in the 3rd round last year. He, really didn't make a mark. I think that Burden's electric. I love his short area quickness. I love the way he gets in and out of his breaks. The guy's a slot fade merchant, and I think you put that with the talent, the arm talent of Jaden Daniels, and all the attention that's paid to Terry McLaurin. I think Luther Burden's going to have a chance to really flourish in that Washington offense. So I'm going to let his slide stop there, and I'll let you pick with Buffalo.
Man, you really saved me, I think, in the eyes of Buffalo Bills fans, because if Luther Burden was on the board and I didn't go with him, as I didn't plan on going with him for the Bills, I did not think that was going to go over well. So I appreciate that pick so much, because I'm going to go with the defensive interior player that, again, I think people are going to see as a reach, a Senior Bowl guy that I really just been in love with the whole process. And what I like most about his game is his versatility at his size. If you watch him play, you're not going to think that he's a 300 pounder, but he is. And he's explosive, he's physical, he's violent. And that's what the Bills need. I think the Bills have a really interestingly built defensive line room in general. They need help in multiple phases in that room. And this guy, though listed as an interior guy, and if you look at the measurables, you're going to see him as a pure D tackle. Played some wide 9 this week, rushes the edge very well, but also did a lot of great stuff in the A gaps. Darius Alexander is my pick for the Buffalo Bills. Just one of my guys. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's a first round talent. I don't have him as a first round grade, but I think kind of the back end of the first round is a great spot for him.
And you hit the nail on the head, man. He has also been one of my guys well before the Senior Bowl. I know he came to light in a lot of people's eyes during the Senior Bowl, but I've been on Darius Alexander all season, all fall. You can go fact check it out there if you're watching this video. Go check my tweets from November and December when I said that Darius Alexander is going to be a problem, and he showed up. And I loved the fact that they exercised his versatility and played him out, standing up and in that 9. You watch him tear up the one-on-ones. I hate the fact that he went to the Bills, being a Jets fan here, but I love the fact that he got paid his flowers and got taken this early. Realistically, I'm hoping he's there around pick 40 when the Jets pick. That's my hopes, but that didn't work out today. I'm up with the Eagles. Darius Alexander would be phenomenal there next to Ed Oliver, and the rest of those defensive line. It's such a good fit. I'm up for the Eagles. I think there's a couple different ways. I'm going to just talk this out real quick. Lane Johnson is another guy who I think is destined for Canton once he retires. I don't know how much more juice he's got left in the tank. He's still producing at an elite level. They had a resurgence in Mekhi Becton coming in, learning under Stoutland, getting out of the ick that happened around him in New York, and moving inside to where he probably should have been the whole time. He was phenomenal. However, he is a free agent. So I'm looking at a guy that might be able to have a little bit of that inside-outside versatility on the offensive line. I'm looking for a guy that can move in space. And you talk about versatility. Where is he? Marcus Mbow from Purdue. I loved his footwork on film. He plays enough power. He utilizes that little jump set, which I think can help him, stay at tackle if you want him to. If you think that he can be a pure tackle, then he can be your Lane Johnson replacement. If not, he can slide inside to right guard and replace Mekhi Becton, or he can take over for Cam Jurgens and play center. You talk about versatility and production all along that offensive line. That's what Marcus Mbow, I think, can produce here for Philly. And for me, I think it's a guy that is going to really benefit even more so from, learning under Jeff Stoutland and those phenomenal offensive linemen that they have there. Landon Dickinson and Tyler Steen and Lane Johnson and the whole group of them. Marcus Mbow is going to be my pick there for Philly.
Yeah, if there were anywhere for me to want him to go, I think Mo is a great fit in Philly, especially with how my evaluation of him went. I think he does have a ways to go in some aspects, but I think going to Philly allows him to kind of develop for a minute. He doesn't have to be a day one guy, but he definitely could be a day one guy. And I think that's exactly the situation where he needs to be, where he can still compete, still have that fire, not feel like he's automatically relegated to bench, but also gets to work with a great guy in Stoutland to develop and become what he can be and really find the best fit for his game. So I really love that fit.
And Philly does that so well. There's certain organizations that know, when to pick that pipeline guy. Like you said, I think it was like eloquently said, they have enough between Steen and Dickerson and Cam Jurgens that he doesn't have to come in and play right away, right? He could be that, that guard tackle, flexible guy, sixth lineman, swing guy right from the start, and then figure out when Lane Johnson makes a decision what you're going to do at the right side. At least you have a guy there ready, learning, willing, and capable of playing. So I love this fit here. And Bo's like perfect guy for that Philly situation. So we'll end it with Kansas City, man. One last pick. Still some good names on the board too.
Oh, for sure. And this is going to be fun. But the Kansas City Chiefs are interesting because I feel like they have a glaring need, right? Where they're like, we need an offensive tackle where they could use some defensive interior help. They could use a guy that's eventually going to fill in for Chris Jones over time. They could use some help in that linebacker room, although I feel like they have some young guys that are going to start to shine there over time. They're just not quite ready yet. But they're in a win now window. They're actively chasing a three-peat here in just mere days. But I do think a true tackle is the need, and this is a terrible class, in my opinion, to need a true tackle. However, throughout this week, I saw a guy that I've been kind of up and down. I've been a little roller coaster on my board. I saw him on preseason boards as the number one tackle overall, and he had a dramatic fall throughout the season. And I think he's worked his way back. I think people are starting to remember kind of who he is and kind of the shine's wearing off of some of the newer toys where his name's kind of been around for quite some time. I was really impressed with what Anthony Belton did this week at tackle in the one-on-ones. And I think for a team looking for a true tackle, there's a lot of these flexible guys. That's not really what they need right now. They need a guy that can come in day one and just be, if at worst, a stopgap at that tackle position. And Anthony Belton's going to be able to do that. He might not have the guard flexibility that you would love to see out of him, though he played some guard today in the game, which I was really happy to see. I thought he held up well there for his size. He's a little big for a guard, but I love him as a day one tackle for the Chiefs. Though he doesn't have one of those first-round grades, or really for a lot of people, even a high day two grade, I think he's a perfect fit for what they need right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess by the pick of Belton there at 32, you are not high on the projection of Kingsley Suamataia, who they drafted 63rd overall last year, 64th, whatever it was.
I just think he's really raw, and realistically, I know he's a very flexible swing tackle. Mm-hmm. I think his long-term home is at right tackle. So I feel like once they finally get a guy that they can feel comfortable with at left tackle, they're going to be, yep, today's the day, or we're going to send Kingsley over to the right tackle, and then we can really have our bookends and feel good. Because I feel like really Suamataia and Belton are both very flexible guys. They can both go left or right tackle.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like just the way that Kingsley plays, he's a very athletic tackle. He's a very downhill style tackle. That's not really what you're looking for out of a left tackle. You want a guy that's going to be more consistent in his pass sets, which is Kingsley's weakness. I think we've seen that in the NFL. I saw that with him in college. I think he needs time as a pass blocker in the league to really settle in, not only hone in his technique, because like I said, I thought he was a very raw prospect coming out. Yeah. But I think you can liken his game to Penei Sewell, where you throw him on the right side, even though he played left side in college, and you let him just go be a dominant force in the run game, and you anchor in Belton next to Joe Thuney, and just let that left side be rock solid for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, no, I get it. I love it. And I think a couple years ago, when you watched the struggles of that offensive line in Kansas City and how much it affected Mahomes and the way that the offense played, we talked about earlier, at least I talked about earlier, the Jets need to keep taking swings on quarterbacks until they get it right. Kansas City needs to do the same with tackles.
For sure.
They just need to, you have arguably, one of the best to ever do it back there. You need to do everything in your power to make sure that he stays upright and he has a chance to, be the innovator playmaker that he is. And he could do it. They could put me and you there at slot receiver and wide receiver. And I think Patrick Mahomes could still throw for, 4,000 yards. So he's not going to do that when he's laying down on his back. You see some of the injuries and some of the, nicks and bruises that are happening with Patrick Mahomes from him taking too many of these hits, you got to keep protecting him. So I love that you chose to go and fortify that line yet again for them, even though they spent some capital on it the past couple years. Keep taking swings until you find your bookend tackles. So I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our mock. Nothing too crazy. Maybe some names in different spots that we haven't thought before, or at least I haven't thought about before. But pretty stock overall, and a lot of fun nonetheless. Parker, I appreciate you coming on, man. Tell everyone again where they can find you and where they can see your stuff and where they can read anything you put out draft related.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And I mean, this is legitimately my full first round mock I've done of this cycle. So that was really fun for me just to kind of not only hear your takes, but just see kind of how this board fell. I'm really interested. I'm actually going to hop off this thing and go put one together because I kind of got amped up. That was really fun to do. So I got something better going on tonight. But no, you can go find me. Again, everything that I have and do will go to my X, to my Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at ParkerBlake60. Go follow me there. I'll post everything there. You can also subscribe to me on Twitter. I post a lot of my random projects. I posted all my Senior Bowl film and my post-practice rants for my subscribers on Twitter. I'm doing a ton of draft content on there. I'll talk about my shadow team all day if I bring it up, but that's a project I do that's related to the draft. That's really fun to follow. A lot of team building stuff there, and it's all my subscribers. But yeah, that's really just go find me there. I do write and do content for the Right Way Sports Network, TWSN. But again, that's all linked through my Twitter. You can find everything through there. So just go follow me.
Yeah. And he's an awesome follow if you have any, really receptive, really responsive on Twitter. So if you have any questions, fire them towards Parker at ParkerBlake60 on Twitter. Really good resource. Really good dude, and I'm glad you got to join me, dude. Late night here. I know you got you got an early flight tomorrow that you got to head back home. And where is home? Cincinnati? Is that home?
I'm actually in Utah. Funny enough, Bengals fan, based out of Utah, born in Kentucky. Kind of just got the team when I was young, and I've carried that struggle with me all the way to the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. I'm glad we got together. I'm glad we finally got to do this. Safe travels home. I know that we'll be in contact, and hopefully everyone watching here will link up with you on Twitter, give you a follow, and get that good, collegiate football prospect insight that you provide, man. So kudos to you, man. I'm glad you joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, one more mock draft in the books. We're getting closer, right? I think we're 8-9 weeks, maybe 10 weeks away from the draft. So you're going to see a lot of content, amping up from all angles. Reach out here first. Hit the like, hit the bell, hit the subscription. So you're notified when these videos do come out. I got a lot more content coming out on the channel soon. You can always follow me at Twitter, DC_NY Jets. Until next time, we are the Draft Dodgers. Thanks, guys.